Marathon, yeah, say that to me, yeah, say that. Yeah, say that to me, oh marathon. You can say that to me, yeah, say that. You can say that to me, marathon. Yeah, say that.
So we're back. We are black.
All right, we're back by popular demand in our own heads. We're back for part 2 of this alien talk because there was a lot of really interesting topics, a lot of really interesting conversations during the first one. And I know we cut it a little short because we were already over an hour, so we're like, we could just do a part 2 on that one. So we are back on this one, and I think I want to start directly into where do you think the idea, meaning we don't know for sure if it's real or not, the idea of aliens starting. Because obviously, like, there's ancient Egyptian situations going on. There's, like, cave drawings. But I think, like, do we know when the first instance of, like, written word, creatures from a different dimension type situation first started?
So, actually, the oldest one that I can think of are the Sumerian text. Right. Yeah. So that's why, you have writers like Zecharia Sitchin, which, there's an entire website called Sitchin is Wrong. So, like, you got to take a lot of his translations with a grain of salt. But he had, like, stories about what he called the Anunnaki, which were an alien species that the Sumerians apparently wrote in their translations that came here from another planet, and then they actually genetically engineered humans, which were pretty much like Neanderthals and stuff like that, crossbred their DNA with their own DNA, and then created what we know now as modern humans. But then they put them into slavery to mine gold because their planet's atmosphere needed gold in order to be able to balance out some kind of breathing ratio or something like that. So, but that supposedly is some of the earliest recorded stuff of extraterrestrials probably coming here. Now, the interesting part about the Sumerian text is even if you ignore all of that stuff, they actually have models of the solar system that they knew about in 6,000 years ago. Like, that's when the Sumerians supposedly wrote this stuff, where they knew that the Earth didn't that the universe didn't revolve around the Earth. They said that the Earth revolved around the sun, and not only that, but they knew that there were 9 planets in our solar system, and even knew that Jupiter was gigantic, and then Saturn had rings and all that stuff, and that Uranus was actually on its side, like we know now. Supposedly, they knew all of this stuff back then, and that was supposedly told to them by these otherworldly entities that possibly have created us. That's Zecharia Sitchin's interpretation of it. But once again, a lot of people debunk his translations because ancient Sumerian is extremely difficult to translate, and they're saying that a lot of it is wrong.
Is, like, the Sumerian situation basically like Prometheus? Like, first point is that kind of what they were saying, the whole premise of the Prometheus, where they travel to the world to meet the engineers, their makers. And then the second part is the Sumerians, weren't they also, like, wiped off the face of the earth like the Mayans, or did they just, like, do a natural progression off?
So from what I remember, there were some, like, adjacent civilizations, but for some reason, I'm not familiar with how the Sumerians actually stopped. And then I think that's another one of the reasons why it's so difficult to translate Sumerian is because there aren't even a lot of adjacent languages to Sumerian. Like, for example, you can go from Greek to Latin or Greek even to English because there are actual, like, there's a direct line of meaning that can be translated between the different types of symbols. But apparently, like, Sanskrit and Sumerian, they don't really have adjacent languages. Like, they're their own thing. And so, like, and I think that's because their civilization appeared to have just kind of disappeared like the Mayans. And but there were other civilizations around at the same time, but they don't seem to connect a lot.
Okay, so Sanskrit, is that like another society that had referenced aliens, or is that like just the writing text of the Sumerians, or?
So Sanskrit, I think Sanskrit is credited as being the oldest human written language.
Oh, right? So there's allegedly,
but there's Sumerian and there's Sumerian and then there's Sanskrit. They're two different languages.
So when they were talking about Sanskrit being potentially referencing aliens, we're talking about amongst the oldest written human language was referencing out extraterrestrials.
Yeah, like Sumerian is one of the oldest, but Sanskrit's older. Now, I don't know about any stories in Sanskrit that reference aliens, but Sumerian seems to, yes. Okay. And they had knowledge of, like I said, cosmology, like the sun, the stars, the planets,
So how, I guess, in your like personal or professional opinion, how does somebody even get away with saying that they're translating a language and then all of a sudden it gets debunked like years later? Like, because I grew up hearing about the Sumerian text and all this situation too, but now you're saying that there's a situation where he may have mistranslated it. Like, how do you even get away with that? And how do you even debunk somebody who translates it and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in and says, oh no, it wasn't translated well, when there's nothing to bounce it against and no language that you pair it with?
Right, exactly. So what wound up happening is like he released that book about the Anunnaki. And then when people start to pick it up and it gain traction, and then people are like, this is like, oh, this is crazy, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden the community of other archaeologists that translate Sumerian, they collectively came together and then started poking holes in what he was saying.
Got it.
However, that still doesn't really take, like I said, that's why, like, even if you throw out the whole Anunnaki story, we still can't explain why they understood about how the Earth, like we're talking about like one of the earliest civilizations ever created or ever put together by humans on Earth. And they somehow knew that we had a sun, that we revolved around the sun, and that we had 9 planets, and then their reference to the sun, their sizes, like they knew all of this stuff as like the first civilization without telescopes, with like, you know what I mean? Like how there's no reason for them to have conceivably been able to know that, unless you go into the idea about how they think the pyramids are way older, and that they're actually a sign from a civilization that was from 13,000 years ago, not 5,000 years ago. And that's why we keep finding symbols like the flower of life all over the world, on all the continents. And then like in the flower of life is a symbol where, if you look at it mathematically, shows you cell division. It shows you about the spin and rotation of the atom, about the golden ratio of the entire universe. Like all of that was put into a symbol that predates ancient Egypt, that predate, like it's literally found all around the world, right?
Yeah.
So it almost goes into the idea of like the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah from the Bible, like how a bunch of different societies all across the world talk about a cataclysm and a great flood that basically wiped out all of humanity, and that like we probably had way more advanced stuff, but then it all got destroyed, and then we went back to the Stone Age.
I was also watching a video on TikTok last night that was kind of referencing the flood a little bit, and they were saying that there's this kid that was allegedly said, he did a lot of research on it, that the flood was more or less also a tool to genuinely get rid of the giants, right?
Oh yeah, that's the Bible.
Get rid of that technology, things like that. Yeah, they were mentioning that in part of the Bible, but I don't know. Do you know if the Bible references that like directly? Like obviously they said that there was giants, but is the flood a tool to get rid of them as well? Because what he was saying is that giants also survived that as well, and then they breeded with other things, and that's why we had like mermaids for a little bit, and that's why we had this, and like.
I don't know about the mermaids.
He was going crazy with that, but to sum it up, he was also talking about the pyramids, and he was saying like the reason why these pyramids, like they just now found those spirals underneath it. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
They were saying that he was hypothesizing that they are probably made of granite and or marble or something like that, and he said that he thinks that pyramids are pressure containers to preserve dead bodies, right? And amongst other things, because there's a lot of talk about how the pyramids were also like engineering, like energy producing
conduits.
Shapes. Yeah.
Okay, so you just went over like 5 different things. So let's take it from the flood, right? So what the Bible says, right, is that, okay, so there's 2 different things. There's a Bible, and then there's the Book of Enoch, right? One of the apocryphal books that were taken out of the Bible. But they talk about the same story. The sons of God, angels, mated with the daughters of men, human women, and then giants were born of them, and they were known as men of renown. So they basically were like the kings of society, But the problem with it was there was two issues with the flood that God was using the flood to cause. One, the angels were teaching man about certain aspects which the Book of Enoch refers to as the ways of heaven. So this consists of making weapons, tattoos, piercings, makeup, alchemy, medicine, like sorcery, like all those types of things, like it, to try to get back at God by making man have information he wasn't ready for, so that they would destroy themselves.
Okay, so real quick on that one, because I know the pyramids are after the flood.
Yes.
So, quick, just yes or no question: do you think that more than Noah's family survived?
Yes, because the Bible actually goes into that. So, so when the flood happens, like God uses the flood to cleanse the earth, because like he basically had to start over. Not only was sin rampant, but the giants were they ran out of food. They started eating people, and then if they didn't have people to eat, then they would start eating each other. Like they were super savages. So they were supposed to be wiped out with that, but I found something where after the flood there was a people called the children of Anak.
Okay.
Right? Anak, Anunnaki, like it's like the same thing, and those were giants. They were the remaining giants after the flood, right? Now it didn't go super into detail. Like there were some issues, some wars being fought back and forth and things like that with those people. You could even probably make the argument that someone like Goliath is one of those leftover giants. You know what I mean? Or like he comes from that type of bloodline. But yeah, like it absolutely says that some did survive. You know, so
good.
But now into mermaids, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's you could probably at the bottom of the ocean you might be able to find a fish that looks like a dude, but like chances are no. That see like it's more likely when you see somebody like Yao Ming that like you can easily see how like there might be some genetic factors where like there were some people that were still left around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next thing, the pyramids, right? So the Bible doesn't reference the creation of the pyramids, right? They basically just say that Egypt was there and they were around and they're making sphinxes and all the other stuff around it. The pyramids themselves do not have any hieroglyphics in them. There are no hieroglyphics that show the construction of the pyramids either. And the pyramids are not tombs. That was debunked decades ago.
Pyramids don't have hieroglyphics?
They don't have hieroglyphics. So you can actually take tours. Like if you guys want to check out some videos, I'm sure you can find like some Discovery Channel videos or stuff on YouTube where people take tours into the pyramids. There aren't any hieroglyphics in the pyramids at all.
Mr. Beast just did a really, really cool tour of the pyramids, and I watched the whole thing.
Did you see any?
No, I didn't remember seeing hieroglyphics.
No, the crazy part about the pyramids is one, the construction of them, right?
Yeah.
But two, it's not just that they stacked a whole bunch of blocks on each other. It's that the king's chamber on the inside have giant 26-ton granite blocks that are suspended over areas on the inside. And then so the some scientists were saying that it might be an energy conduit because there's an area that goes down where the Nile River used to flow under the pyramid. And they said that if you're an electrical engineer, you'd be able to see this. Like you can see how this aqueduct would be able to generate electricity, right? So now with the spiral thing that they might have found under the pyramid, which hasn't been 100% confirmed, is still speculated because of the type of LiDAR that they're using in order to be able to penetrate down under the surface. But if it's anything even similar to that, then it's already insane if it is a man-made structure, just period, because that makes the pyramids way more advanced than we ever even possibly have imagined. And that means that the pyramids weren't on the ground. They were built on top of something. So the desert was way lower than it was. And that was a giant structure on top of something else. You know what I mean? Like, so that changes the entire landscape of what we're looking at.
That wouldn't mean that the pyramids just kind of dug deep. That means that it was probably on the surface and then they built it up.
Yeah.
Like a skyscraper with a pyramid on top of it.
Yeah, but like it's either that or they somehow would have had to build underground. Like built under straight
Hundreds
down.
of feet.
It's like they're saying something like over 700 meters type thing.
Sheesh.
Like in some estimates were saying kilometers, right?
Wow.
And so, like, if you're going straight, imagine.
Well, that would be more likely than for them to be able to build kilometers high, right?
Right. That would be more likely, but
maybe both.
But even still, the engineering required to do that, and then still make a giant pyramid on top with the aqueduct energy source, like. Yeah. So either way, if it's a man-made structure, no matter what it is, it's already crazy. Like, so, you know what I mean? Like,
I guess I have a question about that. It feels like every few years there's some type of like they admit to a conspiracy and then they create a new one. Not create, they find a new thing. Right? So they admitted to aliens, I think it was early 2024 like that, or early 2023, where they just like released all the classified documents. And then all of a sudden now we have ocean aliens. And then they admitted to something else. Now they find the pyramids are way deeper than they ever thought. So like, if this is all true, let's say like one school of thought is that it's all true and it's not a conspiracy, they just keep finding things. What in the spiritual and the scientific, like what's the word, like imaginative sense of the reason why we keep finding things, the reason for humans back in the day to have created something, like what is the purpose for us in 2025 to conceptualize and think about, like, what is this? How does it benefit us to think about this? Like what, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm trying to sculpt it in a way that is broad enough for people to understand.
Right. So there's a couple different implications, right? So
that's the word. Yeah.
So
every time we get on a podcast, like, I feel like I'm so articulate whenever I do my own podcast, and then as soon as we're talking, I'm like, oh, what's the fucking right?
Yeah, like it's that camera magic. Like it's
no, I'm saying when I do my own, I'm like, right? But then when we do one, I'm like, he knows the word.
I have that effect on people.
Yeah.
Not just no, but a couple of different implications. We can start with the Bible one, right? Which people have speculated this for a really long time, that the Genesis story is way older than a lot of the rest of the Bible. Like the story of Adam and Eve and humans' creation and things like that is not like, it's not as direct a line into the 6,000 plus years of history that it's alluding to. Okay. That there are certain aspects of it that predate our current civilization. Like certain questions like, where did Cain get his wife after he killed Abel and he was banished from the family? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like where did these other mystery women come from? Was it his sister? You know what I'm saying? Like all type of stuff like that. But like it's possible that, like, you know, humanity might have existed way longer than we think that it has, and not only that, but possibly have gotten to a point of technological advancement to where we either blew ourselves up, or a meteor came and blew us up, or a deluge like the Great Flood came and just wiped everything away. We probably had like 5 different cataclysms, you know, that keep resetting Earth. And we only find like these tiny little clues. You know, they're just like, well, man, like, you know, those primitive Africans could never build something so advanced. We can't even do this today. And it's like, well, okay, fine. Let's just take that as an argument. Like, which honestly, I don't know how to feel about that either way. But let's just take that as an argument. Let's just say, fine, it wasn't a bunch of Africans that did it. Let's just say it wasn't. Then what does that tell you? That means that there was a civilization that did have that, because the pyramids didn't even used to look the way that they look. They used to be smooth, and then people kept mining the outside of the pyramids until now they're like the hard blocks. It used to be smooth and used to be a gold triangle on top. Yeah, it was a gold cap, which is another reason for the energy generation thing, because you would need that metal to be able to transmit the frequency of the energy that you're creating, right? And so either way, it's like, okay, so whatever story that you guys are trying to tell us is the history of mankind, like that's the implication, is that either you know and you're not telling us, or you just straight up don't know, right? Like, because if you can't explain to me how the granite and limestone blocks, which are well over 20 tons, stacked. Like, in the pyramids aren't even 4-sided; they're 8-sided. Like, if you look at it from a satellite imagery, each one of the sides curves inwards, like in a triangle. So the pyramids are actually 8-sided, right? They're not even 4-sided. 4-sided, over 2 million blocks, placed with pinpoint accuracy, completely aligned with the constellation Orion, like perfectly for like when the winter and spring solstices happen, to where you can see them perfectly over the pyramids. They line up perfectly. And then the stones were taken from a mountain range, cut out of a mountain range over 500 miles away through the desert. And you say that it was rolled over here with a bunch of logs 500 miles away and then put together with copper chisels and tools of that effect. And then hoisted up like all of that. And then hoisted up like hundreds of meters into the air, still with pinpoint accuracy to all of these other things. And the location of it is on what's called the ley lines, right? So the Earth actually has energy centers where energy collection places where the magnetic field of the Earth just collects at certain spots and then spreads out to other spots, kind of like the Aurora Borealis. Like you can actually see it there. But Egypt is one of those spots. So it's on that too. And it's on a part of the map where if you were to split it by the golden ratio, there are pyramids all over the Earth that line up on the golden ratio circle of the Earth. And it's right in the middle of it, dead center, right? So you would have had to known all of the constellations, the entire topography of the Earth, and you would have to be able to place everything with pinpoint accuracy, and you have to be able to lift things that we can't even lift today.
Well, we can.
Well, they said that we can't, like not like that.
They be capping about that stuff, like the stuff that we can do in American engineering.
Conventional technology. Let's just say that way.
With convention, I was gonna say, because we can definitely do all that. We can.
I'm sure. Black budget projects. They could probably, they have anti-gravity at this point. Like,
so I have a really interesting thought, or it could be a really dumb one, right? I have a really interesting thought because I was sitting here thinking about the pyramids probably 2 weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? I think that we overinflate how difficult it was to do certain things, because the first question that's going to set up the real question is, do you think that, I guess it's a multi-layered question. It's a multi-layered question that's going to set up the next one. So obviously humans developed at some point in life, right? So like the first human most likely was not as smart as I am, or not as smart as you are. Do you think the first human has the IQ and or capacity to be as smart as us? Meaning that if we went back in time, grabbed one of the first 10 humans ever and put them in school, do you think they would be able to learn at the exact same rate? Like their brain was already fully developed, things like that. What do you think?
Now, there's a lot of context behind it, but you can actually make an argument that they were smarter.
Great. Let's just go with that. Let's say that they were smarter. How much useless information do you know right now?
An absurd amount.
Okay, finish my sentence. Every day when you
walking down the street.
Okay.
Everybody that you meet.
So the question that I'm putting together is, in today's society, we have so much stimuli. You already know where I'm going with this. We have so much stimuli that's just taking up space.
Bandwidth.
So, bandwidth. If we are genuinely back in the day, and there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no weird stuff. All you have is like sit around, think, tell stories, hypothesize, stare at the sky for 8 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours a day, all the time. Or you're working for Pharaoh, this, or he has his egghead people that's like, hey, you are going to think all day, every day, right? Maybe it's not as technologically different or advanced as we think it is, because all they were doing was thinking about it. All they were doing was creating ways to get this over here and to build it up and to build down. Like they didn't really have they probably didn't even have families to really even consider, because like if you're like commissioned by the Pharaoh to build me the monument that's going to be my family's legacy forever, and that's all you do. You literally can't even do anything else. You don't have a bike, you don't have a car, you don't have this, like all you have is that. So maybe it's really not that difficult. And we just bog down ourselves with all the extra stuff that we put on top to the day-to-day. What do you think about that?
I'm inclined to agree. And so one of the prevailing theories right now is that we just branched into a different type of technology from what was being used then. Is that it's the idea of like if aliens came here and it's like, oh, well, they could just push a button and wipe out all life on Earth because like they have the technology to traverse the stars. And it's like, what if they're just really good at travel? And then they get here and then you shoot them in the stomach and they have no defense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I actually thought about that. Like, probably months ago, I was sitting here thinking, because I just sit around thinking, right? I don't do a lot of stuff. I just be like,
yeah, you're going to build a pyramid.
Facts. So I was sitting here thinking, and I was like, you know what? Like, when it comes to, like, the direction, like, I was looking at my own life, and I was like, if I had done this, obviously everybody has sat and done this type of thinking, where like, man, if that didn't happen in my life, who knows where I'd be? Or if I had thought this differently and thought this through, maybe I would have been an engineer more, and I would have been this, and I would have been that. Like, I was thinking about that. I was like, that also comes in development. Like, where you're at in your life more than likely dictates what kind of job you do, right? Like, if you are the son of a carpenter, more likely you're going to be a carpenter. If your dad is on Wall Street, you're probably going to be a Wall Street ass nigga, right? If your dad's a doctor. So in terms of how human society progresses, like, we also have to keep in mind that the people who are dictating where we go in society are also the reason why we have what we have.
Right.
Because in the 1960s and 50s, like, the people in charge were looking to the stars, which is why we went to the moon, right? And did all this weird stuff, and we established NASA. But now the people in the 80s,
Nazis.
well, the people in the 80s and 90s and 2000s are not concerned with space travel, so we've made no progress, and we've never gone back.
Supposedly.
Never gone back. So that's when I'm like, oh, so it's more or less like, that's why this whole like woke movement and everything that's going is really like causing the degradation of society, because the people in charge are after the wrong things. They're after like their own self-interest, and that's why we have to do more of a job to, like, I don't even believe in like really being able to like elect somebody to do, you know, societal change. But if you believe in that kind of thing, it would be imperative for you to vote and elect people who have the best interest of society, or even the best interest of what you think we should do forward, because it will literally change the course of us as a human race moving forward.
And I agree with that. Now the only problem with that is like then you get places like the WEF, World Economic Forum, and the World Health Organization. People who basically are extreme elitists that are more concerned with corralling the useless eaters, as they say, the useless eaters into specified jobs, and then trying to get us to eat the bugs while they're able to eat steak.
Yeah.
And like it's the same problem that we have with communism, right? Is that communism on paper sounds like a great idea, but the problem with communism is people. And then as soon as you give any handful of people the amount to delegate any types of resources, ideas, education, anything like that, then immediately it goes into abuse. And I think that we're just too immature for something like that to happen. So like an ideal democracy, which this isn't even a democracy, it's a democratic republic. The idea of democracy is technically okay, but then you have to have it a democratic republic, because democracy is 51% of people controlling the other 49, right?
Well, I don't necessarily mean like give them a chance to like
to
make
organize
policy to organize one band, one sound type stuff. I don't mean that. I just mean like genuinely, like if Elon Musk is now in charge of something, you know, we're going to be in Elon Musk's direction.
Right.
Donald Trump being elected means we're in this direction. That doesn't mean that we're allowing him to really create an organization where like he's at the head of a dictatorship type situation, or like doing policy like the World Health Organization. I think in general, just like whoever we put in office like has the ability to sculpt where the human race goes, right? And then obviously like money plays a huge factor, like where the money is where we are, blah blah blah. But I think just in general, like who we've elected, who we listen to, who is in charge of these situations has truly dictated our technological advancements and or lack thereof in the last 50 years, 100 years, probably in the history of mankind.
Oh yeah, black government projects, like that's the reason why like we have so many tens to hundreds of billions of dollars that have disappeared as it is because of that exact thing. Planned obsolescence, you know, like this iPad right here that we're looking at. Technically, it's possible to create an iPad that will never die, that will always be good enough for you to use. But you can't sell products that way, right? And then so I think the issue, like what you're saying, is that the direction that humanity is being pushed in is like I think the governments that are running the world are just trying to keep things afloat for the most part. They're not focused on the innovation, and there's only small groups of people like Elon Musk or like these scientists that are actually interested in the universe and quantum physics and trying to understand how really things work. Most of them don't even get the funding that they want, because people have their meat and potatoes. People like, as long as they got my meat and potatoes, my family's good, then we're good. Well, and like people really aren't interested, because once again we're paralyzed by our success. Because we have so much technology, because we've made so many innovations, because we didn't have them before. Like now we're in idiocracy where your people are being raised by the television, and now they're being raised by YouTube or the internet in general, social media. Like the collective consciousness and culture is already hijacked, so it's like, yeah. But like people's desires are like logged into their dopamine response. And how are you going to get people's dopamine response to lock into, hey, let's figure out really how to build the pyramids ourselves? 99.99% of people do not even care.
So,
you know what I mean?
I was going to agree and I was going to disagree, and you brought up the point that I was going to make, because I agree that we are paralyzed by our success, but I also think we're paralyzed because we're not successful. Like, we're dealing with first world problems.
Right.
When you're talking about innovation and looking to the stars, like, that comes from a period of being okay where you're at. Of course, you can look at this from a desperation standpoint. Like, if we are really dying, we will look to the stars, like an interstellar type of situation. Yeah. But the reason historically we've done innovations is because we've done so well that now we can afford to look other places, which is why I personally believe billionaires are amongst the best people in society. And the broker you are, the more selfish and prideful and a strain on society you are, and people are not going to like that. But if you really look at it, like, who's more likely to rob you? Who's more likely to kill you? Who's more likely to take from you? And all this different things like that. Like, the numbers and statistics is not an emotional situation. So the richer you are, the more successful you are, the more established and maintained you are, the more you're able to look out and be generous, the more you're able to look out and actually like have more humanity to you, because you're not in survival mode.
Right.
So as we're talking about all these different aspects, to bring it back to my first point, is the people that you put in place to take us certain places. That reminds me of like how Abraham is the father of faith. Imagine if people didn't listen to him. Imagine if people did not call him the father. What if he was a one-off situation? Like, where would we be as a society? So then, as we're transitioning away from a faith-based society, because there's a time and place where the majority of the world, like, it is still, the majority of the world is Christian, but the majority of the world was moving as they were Christians. They weren't just Christian in name. Yeah. So
it was integrated into law.
It was integrated into everyday society, into law, into, all types of situations. So since we're de-integrating them, whatever the word is, de-integrating them, we're now we're basically in uncharted territories right now as a human society, because any type of technological advancement, the industrial age, technology as a whole has never been without the foundation of Christianity at the center of it. Like, even when you're talking about German scientists, like, a lot of them are following the Christian faith. And a lot of them, like, morality plays a big role in the reason why we're not already destroyed. Because people, like, when they dropped the atom bombs and all this stuff like that, they were like, oh my gosh, like, we should never do this technology, and it was all like a Christian morality base. So then a lot of conversations I have with people who are not Christian, I ask them, like, where do you get your morality from? And they're like, well, it's just built in. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Morality is not built in. So,
animal instinct is built in.
Exactly, right? The need to survive. Like, the number one human instinct is survival, right? The food, water, all this type of situation like that.
Food, fight, fuck.
Exactly. So as we're moving and pointing in the direction, that's kind of what I'm saying, is like, the people who we put in place are going to change what we do. And when it comes to the technology, if they're keeping us in survival mode, then all of our egghead people who would have been the next advancements and doing the next advancements are now focused on feeding themselves, right? So that's kind of what I'm saying about the direction we go.
I think that you're right, because, like, you can even look at Terrence Howard, as an example, right? It wasn't until he's already been in movies, TV shows, all type of stuff like that for decades. And then now he's finally in a place where it's like money isn't really an issue. He doesn't even consider acting even in the same realm. I think he even said he's going to quit as him trying to understand the fundamental structure of the universe and energy creation and you know, like basically like sacred geometry and stuff like that. And like, and honestly, like he had to get to a point where survival wasn't really a question. And then now he's branching out from there. So like, that's just an example to your point. Because like,
can I tackle that one?
Huh?
You can I tackle that one too?
Yeah.
Like, I think that whenever somebody talks about survival, I think there's two distinct differences in survival and survival, right? One is the fear-based survival, one is the excelling survival. Like, meaning that like everybody wants the same thing, they don't want to suffer, but how we get there, people take two distinct paths. And I think that what the government excels in is trying to get you to survive through fear, right? They're like, if you don't do this,
for sure.
Yes, if you don't do this, you will die. And then I think the people who we should be electing and the people who like are doing it the right way are the people who are like, you will survive if you adopt positive behaviors, if you look at your fellow man with love and kindness, and if you understand that like taking from your fellow man and this like that type of philosophy. And they both get to the same place, but how you feel when you get there is very and vastly different. So if we're talking about a Terrence Howard, like I love the idea that we're dealing with somebody who has figured out money is no longer an issue for him. He's succeeded by all worldly standards to the degree where he has the fame, he has the money. People think he looks good. I'm sure he has like, you know, women at his disposal if that's something that you're like, you put in your success field. And now he's devoting himself to more philanthropic situations, just like an Elon Musk, right? So Elon Musk is working 16-hour days and working the Doge team, you know, quote unquote, for our benefit. Like, it's not like he's getting paid for this. So as we're looking at these individuals, of course, the first thing that a survival mentality person would do who isn't living positively like them is to critique and to say that they are not doing well and like, oh, we don't like how he's, you know, so those type of people I have a fundamental disagreement with just in whole, because I guess it's hard to explain when it comes to like that for sure, but I like the idea of surviving and getting there positively than trying to omit different things and get there negatively and use fear to be the catalyst for my success. Right. I like that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And like it's almost like I don't know if it's a backfire because like this seems to be what they want, but the propaganda machine has been going for decades, and it's all built in the same thing: repetition, consumerism, install fear, manipulation of public opinion to possibly manipulate votes so that certain people can stay in office and whatever.
Yeah.
And and certain laws can get passed. And so, you know, like these governments don't seem to be in the business of necessarily advancing humanity. Like, it's more about like, can I get reelected? Or what political stance do I need to stand next to because my vote or my influence is going to be needed for this next wave of bureaucrats to come in and then do things. And that stifles innovation. You know, like I found out something called plasma cosmology way back when I was like in college. And plasma cosmology is basically how the theory, right, that the entire universe is actually 99.9% electromagnetism, and that solves the gravity problem. It solves the dark matter problem. It solves the dark energy problem. It solves the rotation problem. Like they've been trying to finagle standard physics to be able to fit it. But then plasma cosmology basically answers all of those questions, right? But the problem is that since there's even like a cabal when it comes to mainstream science, due to funding. And now even scientists are being co-opted by political agendas like wokeism and things like that. Like, because now I don't know how the Hollywood idea infiltrated science, where that's supposed to be the most objective place where you can actually go. That's supposed to be fiercely scrutinized on all directions before you can even really have a paper accepted. And then those same people will turn around and be like, well, you don't have our same theory, so that information is bunk, and I'm going to spend my entire time trying to prove that you're an idiot.
And now we're dealing with the situation of what I was just saying. When it comes to how you get there the same, sorry, like the way that you get there is different, but the end goal is the same. One got there through fear, and one gets there through the positivity. So we're dealing with scientists who got there through fear, and what fear does is it never lets up. So now you're afraid that if you let in other things, your funding's gonna be gone. If you don't play ball, you're not gonna get your paper, this, and your experiments are not gonna blah blah blah. So that's how they get wrapped up into it, because at some point the positivity, the true American like grit in like
the American dream.
You know what I'm saying? Like the what
Innovation.
It means to be like, I mean, the confidence, like the American confidence, and some people would say arrogance has fallen off to the degree where like we used to do these things because we could.
Yes.
And now we're doing them like because we have to, and now we are only in these spaces because we were invited, and now we don't want to step on toes because we're going to get uninvited. And we used to be the country and the platform of creating our own space. Now we're entering other people's space, and then when we do have a space that's created, now we're gatekeeping the space, and it's all about fear and stuff like that. Like I could never imagine like an Einstein, well, I don't know Einstein like that, but like I couldn't imagine like an Einstein and a bunch of eggheads who come together, not allowing another egghead to come in with interesting ideas because it's going to threaten their idea. Like it used to be a room of thinkers, and all you had to do was think. Like, and if you have an idea, it was always heard, because if you were in the room, you had a level of, thought process that was well respected, and any idea is accepted amongst peers, whatever. I don't know. It's very different.
Yeah, to your point, and if I put it through your lens of fear and positivity, two great examples of that. Einstein was more on the positive side. He even worked with people like Nikola Tesla, which like he was one of the greatest people, scientists of all time, but he died broken, penniless. But then you have the fear side, Thomas Edison, who literally I used to read books about Thomas Edison about. It was like a feel-good story. He failed hundreds of times, and then he found the light bulb.
The one.
Yeah, but guess what? No, he didn't.
Hell no.
It was actually somebody else. He was notorious for stealing people's patents. He didn't even do the light bulb. The one thing that he could do was advertise.
Yeah.
Steal and advertise. Those were his superpowers.
Yeah.
But we have those two branches. Like Einstein worked with Nikola Tesla and like other people on the Manhattan Project, and like he worked with people from other countries, even other Germans who defected from Nazi Germany, because he ran from Nazi Germany, and that's how he got into the Manhattan Project. Right? So he was working with everybody. He was one of those people where it's like, we're going to do this out of necessity, but also I'm sure that they like to do it just because they're scientists. You know what I mean? Like Einstein also went to like his deathbed doing equations, trying to like prove something, you know what I mean? And like those type of people who are like at the forefront of human change and innovation, like him or hate him, Elon Musk is one of those guys.
Easily.
Like he's one of those guys where
Easily.
it's like you guys are talking shit about a modern day superhuman who's running multiple businesses at the forefront of all type of technology, and he's doing stuff like the Doge program, like you said, for free, like just because he feels it could be better. Bought Twitter because he thought it would be like, if we lose free speech, then we're gonna lose free thought. Like it's like, come on, man. Like I mean, unless he turned out to be the Antichrist, which like honestly he can't be, because too many people hate him.
Exactly.
This is the issue, right? I think you're right. That when you're complete, like if you're in a bad spot, you're in fear and you're in survival mode. When you see somebody, even if they're trying to do the right thing, doing better than you,
especially if they're doing the right thing,
then the mirror gets pulled up, and then instead of saying I need to step up my game, you say, well, he got his money through ill-gotten gains. No, he overworks his employees. There are people starving because he's getting resources in mines and things. Yep. And it's like, okay, yeah, but same with your cell phone that you use, like in your Starbucks
cup. And that's literally like, bro, you couldn't have said it any better, because that's literally, I really think this is like a true hypothesis I have. I think there's an entire German psyops, not necessarily German, but a psyops going.
The father of propaganda, Edward Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, the creator of psychology.
Nigga, you heard it here first.
Yeah, Edward Bernays.
I genuinely think
he's the reason why you eat bacon and eggs in the morning. He did that. He started.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole psyops to make America not America anymore, because if you think about it on a grand scale, like, okay, so think on a small scale, I'm going to bring it to a grand scale. So you literally just said the medium scale. So let's take it person to person. So Nipsey Hussle, right, was a rapper who did very well independently, made millions of dollars without a label. He went back, bought a building, bought a bunch of different stores, employed all his niggas, right, employed all his people, and then got killed by his own friend out of some jealousy, out of some weird action. So that's how you see that even when you break out and you're no longer in survival mode and you come back and do the right thing, because how many times have you seen they don't give back to society? They don't give back because niggas will kill them, right? So that's one.
Yeah, you can't go back to the hood.
Then you already said the medium one, where like you're finding the Elon Musks, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Let's do the grand scale one, which is nation to nation. So let's say that you are Germany, let's say that you're Poland, let's say that you're Russia, and you're looking over the pond at America that's doing flawlessly in the 1900s, and well, I guess let's do it after World War II, like being flawless in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and like their economy's booming. They have
we were repairing all the damage after World War II.
Exactly.
Like that's why Japan got built up so fast.
Facts. And we have some of the best presidents of all time, like the Kennedys and things like that. Like I don't know about that.
They consider him the last president.
Right. So we have some of the best presidents, whatever, and then you see us flourishing in the American dream and everybody wants to come over here. Don't you think that same jealousy instrument, that same jealousy tool can go from country to country? So I think that there's a whole conspiracy of these people flooding into America to specifically not make America America anymore. We do not have American ideals anymore. We don't even have the American spirit. The American dream is dead. Not only because of money, but because of just the person-to-person situation. Like we used to literally link arms and be like us against the world, and even as early as 2006, 2009, probably 2006, when Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire, and he was on the train and his mask came off, and they were like, "We won't tell anybody," blah blah blah, and all the New Yorkers were like, "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us," right?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't exist anymore. That's dead. Just less than 20 years ago, that thing is cooked, right? So what does that really mean moving forward? It means that we've been infiltrated, in my opinion, this is my hypothesis, that we've been infiltrated. There's been a psyops to divide, not just divide and conquer, but also like create a whole different set of ideals to poison what the positive America used to be, because there was so much jealousy across overseas. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And I think a lot of that is rooted in this idea of individualism and in like not as, patriotism. Mm-hmm. Now, like there's a whole phrase that goes like patriotism is for the poor, right? Like in the idea is that like only like the poor people, the rednecks and things like that who actually do hold on to those ideals and are united behind the Constitution, like they're just poor inbred SOBs that don't know what they're talking about. They're living just like how people treat the Bible now, that it's considered outdated ancient information that doesn't apply to today's standards. But here's the problem, is that when you go into individualism, then you don't have any collective energy to be able to push things forward. And like just like in The Incredibles, if everybody's super, then no one is, right? But like, and that's the issue. And that's why it seems like it's almost like only the people who are able to galvanize behind strong ideas and stick to them as a group are able to even move anything. So that's why business works so well. Like if you're, business owners and stuff like that.
Let's go a little deeper on the exact same point you're making. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's ideals, but it's also like sin taking root, right?
Yeah.
Because
oh yeah,
what does it mean to be an individual in society? it's literally pride, selfishness, greed, all these situations that are taking root in society, right?
Envy, coveting.
Exactly. So as we're talking about, I think it's a sin situation, because if we're dealing with the individual and we're no longer in the collective, right? That's a sin situation to separate us. It's about pride, it's about greed, it's about like all that one man for themselves. But I don't necessarily agree that, like, I think the root of it is the arrogance it takes to say that something that's worked for the last 2,000 years no longer works because we are now different. We are now better. And I think that actually is the root of this transgender situation. Like the psychology.
They had trannies in the Bible.
Well, I mean, the psychology of somebody who is a transgender today, the psychology of somebody, like, outside of like mental conditions, things like that, like the psychology of somebody who is an ally to heightened degrees, blue-haired people, by every metric of that definition, you are a look at me person. That's why theater, which I do a lot of, and I can talk on this very clearly and very just directly, it attracts those type of individuals because these are people who want to be seen. These are pick-me people. These are people who did not get whatever it was that they wanted, and now they're here to get more of it. So as they're changing pronouns and changing identities and doing all this stuff, like, it's about something that they're looking for that they don't have. And at the root of it is an arrogance, a selfishness, of course, but at the root of it is damage and hurt and pain that we should make sure we do enough of. Needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But on a layer above of it, like is genuinely manifesting as a sin, is genuinely manifesting as a pride situation, which is integrating into society, which is why we think we no longer have the American dream anymore. We think that it's for the poor, like American dream's for the poor, because like all this self-made work and all this billionaires are the devil and all this weird stuff is all centered around the same stuff. It's arrogance and pride that's coming into it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, like, especially arrogance and pride, because, like, here's a hard thing for people to accept, is that it's arrogance and pride that keep you from working harder. Because when you see somebody who's in a better position and your first instinct is to try to tear them down in your mind or in your heart, what you're basically saying is, I'm already so good. I'm so good that I don't need to improve. So if that person's better than me, then he did something wrong. Yes. Right? And like, and that's actually crazy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also why innovation is stifled. One of the reasons, of course, I'm sure that the Black government projects have things that are like 50 years ahead of what we know about. However, on a societal level, innovation is stifled because everybody already is in this competition with everybody else on a surface level, not on a character level. So Instagram shows that everybody's trying to compare trips, lives, bodies, jewelry, like how you're dressing, who you're hanging out with, and all of these things are shadows in comparison to what the American dream is supposed to be about. Is that ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, like JFK, right? And the reason why he would say something like that is because when you commit yourself to the duty of the collective, then it forces you to elevate as a person. And then by elevating, you are of service to more people. And when you're of service to more people, that aligns right with what the Bible pretty much says that you're supposed to do as well. And then you stretch, you evolve, you grow, and you help everybody around them to, as an example, to grow and stretch and evolve as well. And like, so without that, all you have is a bunch of people who are trying to get famous, TikTok dances, doing like ridiculous things, hitting each other in the face with bats, and all just for like the smallest hint that you'll get that viral video to where you won't have to work your job at McDonald's. Meanwhile, people keep sending you emails saying, come to this free course to so that you can actually expand who you are as a person. But they're like, nah, that's boring, or it's too time consuming, or it's too hard. But getting hit in the face with a bat, you can do that one, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, that's crazy because we were supposed to be talking about aliens, but like,
yeah, and
but I kind of like this, because I think we left off. Not that I want to go back to it, just about like just technology and what it means.
No, I was talking about aliens.
Like, you're like, aliens like might have stopped, or like they might have hyper focused on travel and nothing else, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the way that this segmented, it's because like our direction really dictates like what we end up doing, right? Mm-hmm. So as we are talking about the direction of end up doing is obviously going to lead us back to the people who don't do and the people who do and why they do.
Do.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And why they do. So as we're talking about like the trends and TikToks and YouTube and like what is worth your time and what is like, it's all about like the ideal at the center. It's all about like the message and the core, and which is why like the Christian society is making a resurgence and making a comeback, because at the end of the day, like there's only so much complaining you can do before you, if you're an intelligent person, before you look around and smell the roses. You look around and say, wait a minute, like I have not progressed. This is not working. Like something that I'm doing is not working. So let's go back to the old trusty,
right,
which is something that's been perfect for the last 2,000 years to progress, keep healthy, morally, one band, one sound, same page. And that is like the Christian ideal of society. Like the Ten Commandments is the perfect document of things to follow. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing better. We have not figured out anything better. We haven't seen anything better. So I think our task today is to look around and be that singular ideal, group ideal, that if no one else is going to work, you have to work. You have a personal responsibility to make yourself as successful, as knowledgeable, as kind, as caring as you possibly can, because if you don't do it, no one's going to do it. Mm-hmm. If you don't innovate, no one's going to innovate. I think back in the day with our parents' age, I think they could genuinely sit in a factory job for 20 years and there was always going to be a television getting created. There's always going to be a cell phone getting created. There's always going to be the next thing getting created, but I don't think in 2025 that's going to happen anymore. Mm-hmm. There's so many different examples in society where if you, as Shannon, do not do it, mm-hmm, it will not happen. Like music in general is a perfect example for anybody who's listening to music. Like we have not had a Michael Jackson. We have not had a hit. We've not had a genuine classic in how long? Movies. The last 10 years, what is the great movie? Like, we had Oppenheimer come out, but that bitch was boring. like, I'm not saying it's not a great movie. Like, make no mistake. I'm just saying, like, we used to have 20 Oppenheimers a year. And then we'd have that Jurassic Park that's the timeless classic. Maybe Oppenheimer turns out to be the timeless classic because Christopher Nolan is amazing. Probably shouldn't say Christopher Nolan because he's excellent.
Yeah.
But, like, how many... Like, Barbie was, like, the highest-grossing movie of last year or something like that. And I'm like, we don't have... Like, we were having, like... Jerry Maguire, Jurassic Park, Jaws, like Star Wars, all these things came out in the early 90s, and now we like maybe every 10 years we're gonna get a sniff of another Star Wars.
Yeah, like I can't even conceive of a movie about the same thing being as good as the 1999 Mummy with Brendan Fraser. I don't even think it can happen anymore, like because the spirit, the soul, the energy, the passion, it's just not there. Like it's more about what can we do with the current technology and cutting cost and okay, well, Geostorm, right? Mm-hmm. A perfect movie about we just like
that shit was ass.
It was we just want the whole world, and Day After Tomorrow was the same thing. We want the whole world. We want to show these cataclysms over the whole earth because we have this new program, and we're able to make tornadoes in LA, right? So you just slap together a plot so you can just show what you just made with the technology, right? And so
that's essentially what Ian Malcolm was arguing against in Jurassic Park. He's saying like you got the technology, but you didn't like study it, you didn't respect it, you didn't even figure out what you had before you patented it, packaged it, and then sold it out to people. But that's literally what CGI was, literally in real time. Mm-hmm. Like they created the technology like we can do anything on camera. Let's do anything instead of figuring out like, okay, so how best do we use this? What does it mean to put CGI in movies? What does it mean to go into the digital age? What does it mean to leave film behind? Things like that. And literally, Ian, and then it's funny because the movie that did it perfectly is Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
That blended the practical effects. Yeah, it blended practical effects with CGI in the perfect way, and now we have a perfect movie.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, I know Mummy did excellent when it comes to certain things like that. Like, so when you're talking about that, I don't want to segue the point just yet, but I do want to say my hypothesis is that we're in the next turning of age. This is something that I've been sitting with probably for the last year or two, where I'm like, things are dying, but that's a positive, right? When there's a crisis, we never let a good crisis go to waste. So people thought music was over when the iPod came out. People thought it was over when streaming came out. People thought the human interaction was over when the radio came out. Like this is one of those turning of age stories. So if movies are now stagnant, the medium of movies are stagnant, the medium of music is stagnant, then what's going to be the next thing? And I think there's a lot of people starting to understand that we're going into the next thing, but we're not going to turn and create the next thing unless we create the next thing.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I think that you're right. Disney is a perfect example of this because, like, people keep trying to, they keep trying to, like, make money off of these Marvel movies and, like, the success of Endgame and things like that. And, like, but the issue is that there was almost 12 years, 20 years, something like that, of buildup before Endgame, like, finally came to this, like, crescendo. And even at the very end, there was still some people that were just a little bit disappointed by it. But, like, even still, like, after that, it felt like the Marvel Cinematic Universe truly was just done.
It was done.
And, like, and then all the other subsequent movies after that, like, especially with the wokeism, just flop after flop after flop after flop. Now, I've heard some good things about the new Thunderbolts movie. I haven't seen it yet. I have no idea.
I'm not seeing that dog shit.
I'm assuming that's probably going to be, like, a B+. But, like, it's
C+.
Like, it's not going to come up to the feeling of the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
The first Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Blade. Bro, when Blade came out, that was that was one of the few times, and we were just kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm black, I could be like him, I'm like, look at him, Frost.
Some motherfuckers always want to ice skate uphill. Yeah,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Bro.
The original Blade, like how do you can't manufacture lightning in a bottle, and I think that's the thing is that, like, these companies think that they can, and then Disney has to lose another $300 billion before I think they just have to get it through the pipeline,
but I actually
bro.
disagree.
You think so?
I think you can capture lightning in a bottle because what they did is they created a formula and then they deviated from the formula. Like you said it yourself. You said that they started with Iron Man. They built. They had 4 of those. They had 3 or 4 Captain Americas. They had 3 or 4 Thors.
Yeah.
When's the last time? When's Shang-Chi Part 2 come out?
That's a good point.
Like Black Panther 2, they did black people disservice. That's a whole different situation on Wakanda Forever. But in general, like when are these people, like Spider-Man's the only one who's got a second and third movie, but they also used him in the first iteration of Endgame and the first Avengers. Like so. What they should have done is gone back to their formula, but that's also the topic about film. Why film is dying is because there's a lot of red tape about funding. There's a lot of red tape about how a script gets made and what a studio will greenlight because there's been success. So they've been paralyzed through success of seeing $1 billion every time. So now they don't understand that they would rather lose $150-something million on a movie than to greenlight a movie for $8 million and hope it makes 17. They like to play with big numbers. It literally is sin. You heard it here first. It literally is the gambling sin that they are dealing with in Hollywood right now. I just watched a video last night. Last year, the number one movie that lost amount of money was Joker, the D. Foley X shit.
Yeah.
Take a guess on how much money it took to make that movie. Keep in mind, there was only like 3 locations. There was the prison, there was the jailhouse, and there was on the street. And in terms of practical effects, there's only 1 explosion in the whole movie.
I bet they still paid just to make it easily over $250 million.
$371 million to make that movie. Do you know how much money they used to make the first one?
What? Like less than 1?
Less than 1.
Like
so at 4 times the budget, you know how much money they lost?
$400 million.
It only cost 371.
Oh yeah. So they're in debt.
Like they lost $155 million on that movie last year, and they keep doing the same shit. Like Captain Marvel, like the Marvels, it cost $455 million to make that dog chips of a movie with Brie Larson.
That's crazy.
And they lost almost $200 million with that movie. I don't even know how they made $200. I think just from the name Marvel. It's a gambling issue. So now they're in the $1 billion club, and maybe it's appearances, maybe it's a flex, maybe it's like, okay, as a director, I need this to make it. Like, I think that there's going to be a resurgence in indie filmmaking, but it's not going to be the same grassroots, cut and dry, like Quentin Tarantino indie filmmaking that got Dusk Till Dawn going. It's going to be a whole new digital age of AI mixed with filmmaking, mixed with genuine people who it's going to be us. Because the hypothesis that I have is that there's too many people in survival mode to have an indie resurgence like they did back in the day. Hear me out. Because for you to make a movie, you have to have so much time, energy, talent, crew, people who also have the same vision. And if everybody's broke and all this stuff happening, keep in mind, this is not going to happen in California. I will bet anything on it because California is a hub of survival mode. They are just getting by, and a lot of them are not even getting by. So the resurgence is not going to happen in California. It's going to happen in other places like Colorado and Texas and Arizona. So there's going to be small pockets of people who have a day job, who are making enough money to do this, and then have enough passion and free time to do this, because you can't make a movie on a shoestring budget to any type of degree without a team of people. So every one of your friends, every one of your people has to make enough money in their day job to devote to this side project. And then you have to have the expertise to accomplish all of it and then put it out, and then also have to have a medium for making money, your money back, like putting it on Tubi, things like that. So it's going to be a very small group of people who are going to be able to like bring film back if it ever comes back. So that's what we're working on. That's something I'm personally working on because I do have a day job where money's not an issue anymore. So I have all this time to shoot a 2-hour podcast here and time to do all this other stuff. So like we're blessed in that degree. But I think that that's the only type of people who I foresee, in my opinion, who's going to be able to bring certain of these mediums back.
I do agree with that. I almost feel like you just info dumped me, but but you're totally right. Because I think that, like you said, Hollywood, it's not even the survival mode is definitely a thing. However, but it's also a culture, and there's like an acceptance of certain connections that you're supposed to make. There are gatekeepers in the game, and of course you have YouTube, which helps to level the playing field. But did you see the interview with Robert Rodriguez?
Of course I did.
Yeah,
and I watched Dust to Dawn right after it.
Yeah, know who he is.
That's literally why I'm talking about it. That's cool that you watched that.
Yeah, because I've been watching all that stuff, bro. Yeah. And he basically made like a dope movie for $7,000.
Yep.
So like now the issue gets into, it's like, okay, yeah, like if you have a really big budget film, there's a lot of pressure. You may be able to have more wiggle room. You can pay people to do things. But he was just like, well, I was the writer, I was the director, I acted in it, I did the lighting, I did the effects, and he was like, he didn't even want to hand over the tape and tell the guy that he was like playing everything and that he did everything, and that's how he was able to do it for $7,000. So I think that the gambling thing is definitely a thing, because they're like, all right, big money, no whammies, and then they just throw out $250 million because they can, and it's like, dude, like if you would have spent 1/10 that amount and just put some love into it and a little bit more time, you would have saved money on the front end and made extra money on the back, which doesn't make any sense.
But on that same point, I also think not only is the sin of gambling, I think there's a lot of money laundering and a lot of
there has to be.
I don't even want to get into it because it's gonna be a whole thing.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of money laundering and a lot of gambling and a lot of tax write-offs and stuff going on in the background of all this stuff, because there's no one auditing where the money goes, right? So if you have a first movie that made that you cost $70 million to make, and then your next one costs $400 million, but it's not better in any type of degree, that should call for an audit. If we have a director like Todd Phillips who said, I made the next Joker movie because I didn't want to make it, and I made it trash on purpose to kill the franchise and kill the character, I'm suing you, and I'm trying to put you in prison for something. Like if I'm the studio, but the studio hasn't said anything.
Matrix did that.
I would sue the chips out of them, and I don't understand why they're not. So that clues you in. People have died for less than $1 million.
Oh my!
There's millions of people who have died for a lot.
Died for J's, bro.
We're talking about $200 million in the studios that are muddy hungry. We're talking about Rachel Zegler, who may never work again in Hollywood because she cost them a lot of money with this Disney situation. But we're talking about a director he has the audacity to say this in an interview that I did it on purpose. There's some weird shit on that one. So, but to jump back to Robert Rodriguez, I think the reason why that can't happen again, or is less likely to happen again, is because let's say it cost $5,000 to make it today. Mm-hmm. Why is somebody going to spend $5,000 to make it? Even he made the movie and then distributed it. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of distribution places, so I read the terms and conditions of Tubi, and Tubi says, we'll accept your movie if it feels and looks like a movie. What does that mean?
Right.
What does feel exactly? What does feel and look like a movie actually mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that there's a formula and a standard, blah, 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 which is literally, that clause means that movies cannot innovate. You cannot change the format and make it feel like something because movies have a feeling. What the fuck does that mean? Like, there's no strict parameters. Like, with music, you have to be in key. There's tempo, there's timing, there's a mix, things like that. Like, but there's so many different genres. Like, rock music does not feel like hip-hop music. So how does movies have a feeling? Once we can break out of what it feels to make a movie, then we're looking in the 21st century finally, or the next century, right? But until we get there, we're dealing with the situation of, if you're going to put a budget together of $7,000 to make a movie and you have no avenue to distribute it, or there's no real way to make money from it, or the only way to do it is a situation of you have to have a way to distribute it, and then you have to have a way to make your money back. You have to make your time worth it for people involved, because not everybody's going to be a passion project individual, and you also want people to see it. So is it just YouTube? YouTube does not pay enough for you to be putting together $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 budgets. And
they don't.
Yeah.
Unlike, I mean, unless you, I don't know if you've looked into the YouTube Red contracts and things like that. That might be a little bit different. However,
I'm not.
Yeah, it might be the same exact thing. And like that's the issue, is because like people feel like the playing field is leveled with things like YouTube and like maybe now X and things like that. However, you're not really going to get paid. Like you're going to have to do it for the love of the game, and I think that's where a lot of people. Yep, like I think that's where a lot of people are going to fall off. And that's where most people do fall off, is because, like, you're putting all this time and energy and effort into something that, like, you don't even know if the algorithm is going to shadow ban it. Like there's so many things that ideas that you probably could put out there, but like, you know, your channel can go down from one bad project, and it's not the project is bad. It's YouTube says it's bad. Right, and then your channel is basically done. You have to start a new channel, and now you spent all that money.
Dusk Till Dawn had hella tits in it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You can't put that on YouTube.
Salma Hayek feet.
Bro, he went crazy on that one.
Yeah,
like
he wrote her into it.
You literally can't even put that on YouTube. So, like, I'm not saying that movies are good. Like, I'm not saying that you can't make a movie and it's not okay to like change your vision up a little bit. Like, I personally don't think that sex has to be in a movie. I think it can be implied.
Yeah.
But to take a classic like Dusk Till Dawn or Pulp Fiction, like, let's say that is the vision of your journey. Like, you're a filmmaker with that vision. You can't even do that on certain platforms. Like, X is the only platform that you could really do that on. That's getting enough traffic for you to make it worth it, right? But do people get paid from X?
They do, but I don't think it's very much.
People get paid, like, you can do a Patreon, things like that, but like, how do you get that? It's like you have to be an expert. You have to be an expert advertiser, marketer, as well as an expert filmmaker and an expert budget person, an expert producer. It's like it's too many hats for not enough payoff, and that's where I think that's why movies are being stagnant.
Yeah, there's definitely a soft cap. Like, there's a glass ceiling, because that's where the $250 million comes from, like, on top of a little bit of the money laundering. But, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, just as much money, if not more money, that it takes to actually develop the film is spent purely on advertising.
Yeah, and half the budget typically.
Yeah, like, and that's insane if you think about it, because, like, you're paying people's salaries, you're paying for the props, you're paying for, like, the effects, and you're paying with your time, and then, like, you know, and then you put it all together, and then it's like, okay, I just spent $3 million. I now need another $3 million so that I can actually just advertise it as good. And that's the crazy part, is like, you can pay for something to get viral. You know what I mean? And like, and I'm pretty sure, like, now there have been some exceptions. Like, if you go to Warner Brothers on YouTube, you know what I mean? Like, you know, something will get like 10 million views in like a couple hours or something like that for a new trailer. However, you know, like, I think that there's still a pushback on that. That's why they took away the dislike button, is that like, it'll just be capped off. And then they still allow the comments. If the comments are turned off, you know what happened, right? And like, but like that same video with that amount of money should have got 100 million views, but you can guarantee the 10, which officially makes it viral anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna get enough eyes. You know what I mean?
So yeah, it's a very fascinating topic. Like, on all these, and I like how it transitions into that, because like, I'm heavy into film. I like this stuff a lot. So we'll have to do a part 3. We'll have to do a part 3 to talk about it, because like, once you start talking about Robert Rodriguez and then the film stuff, like, I love that kind of stuff.
That's where you're locked in.
I'm locked in right there. So yeah, I think we'll just have to make a make a part 3.
Yeah, we
Part
transition from aliens into politics, society, religion, into filmmaking.
Right. Now that is an organic conversation for
That's
sure.
crazy.
All right. Well, if you got anything from this video, it is that use your noggin some more. And you have a responsibility to not live in survival mode. And the only way out of your current condition is to look at this fear-based society, look at all the survival things that they're wanting you to do, and look at the opposite of it. And if that means develop more skills, develop better people around you, or whatever it means, like, you have a responsibility to do better so you can give the world better than what it currently has. So, until next time.
K the Raw on everything.
Yeah, say that to me, oh marathon. You can say that to me, yeah, say that. You can say that.